Good evening, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City, your Sunday night with Speed City, and we got a lot of things to talk about tonight. This is John Massengale. I'm sitting in the studio, and I got my boys, Jonathan Green and Les Kaiser, calling in on Zoom. And if you're watching on social media, we appreciate it. And yeah, we got a great show tonight. We got a bunch of guests, and we got Brian Till. He's a renowned broadcaster. You probably heard his name. And he's coming on here in just a few minutes. And then we got the corner marshal supervisor out at COTA, Dave Forman, coming on. Then we got the boys from Super Lap Battle. They're going to do a little sponsor of Speed City and tell us about the Super Lap Battle coming back to COTA. That's a cool deal. But how are you boys, Jonathan and Les? Y'all doing good?
A little bit jaded. Had a busy weekend doing motorsport from 18,000 miles away, but had a lovely time.
Fantastic. But yeah, I heard some good stuff. I got out and did a mountain bike run yesterday and fell into a cactus. I survived. And today I worked in the garage. All good.
That sounds like a good Texas story. I fell into a cactus.
Sounds like a good weekend.
Jonathan, you were on the microphones for the Toyota Racing Series for, I don't know how many hours this weekend, right?
Yeah, we were live streaming. Usually I'd be down there, of course, but because of COVID, no international drivers and therefore no international commentators, unfortunately. So it was an all New Zealand affair, but we live streamed the whole event. So that's all the categories, and that's muscle cars and tin tops and V8s and utes, as they call them, truck racing.
I love the utes.
And of course. Yeah. And it's headlined by the Toyota Racing Series, which, of course, is the junior series or junior formula series, where the likes of Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, Liam Lawson more recently, have all sort of cut their teeth and made their name. And it's a really great series, and I've been part of it for the last decade. I love it. But like I said, this weekend, the New Zealand Grand Prix was an all Kiwi New Zealand affair.
Yeah, and it was streaming on motorsport.tv, I think is what it was.
Yep.
Yeah,
if you want to see the highlights and catch up with some of the action, you can go to motorsport.tv, which is great that they're taking it. And it's, well, it hasn't finished. We've got races next weekend and the weekend after. So it's three races each weekend, 9 races in all. And although the international V8 drivers like Van Gisbergen and Van der Drift won't be taking part in the whole series, they just wanted to do the Grand Prix to make it a bigger occasion. But the youngsters and the next kids coming up, will be taking part in that. People like Ronan Murphy, who took part in F4 here in the States this year.
Yeah, and you know what, Jonathan, we were talking about this earlier, is that it's pretty cool that it's finally happened. You're calling live motorsports all over the world from your bedroom.
Yeah. And we did the E series with Trans Am, and I've done Zoom commentaries before, or at least internet commentaries before. But this was the first time that I'd actually done a live race to live TV. It was shown live in Australia and New Zealand, and of course worldwide on motorsport.tv. And also they put it out on the PA, which really kind of freaked me out. So I could hear myself going to the crowd, which was just weird.
I don't know. With all that, John, don't you think his neighbors are a little curious?
It's funny, when I put the mic down last night at about midnight, 12:30, because it was the Grand Prix with the finish. And
there was a round of applause in your apartment complex?
Well, I don't know about a round of applause, but I'm sure they were wondering, mayhem! I'm sure they were wondering what the hell was going on up here. And if I'd have told them what was going on, they wouldn't have believed me.
Oh, that's hilarious. I never thought about that. Yeah, because you can be quite vociferous on the microphone.
I like the word.
Well, I'm excited because we're going to talk all about the Rolex, and everybody got to watch the Rolex, the new way they did it, where they had the 100-minute qualifying at the Roar for the Daytona 24 hours. And
yeah, I think.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I like it because, you've got to be, endurance racing is, it's a very specialist form of motor racing, and you're either into it or you're not into it. It's a good spectacle, especially in a 24-hour race where things go wrong and you're racing against the clock. But qualifying can be pretty dull, to be fair. And so they've spiced it up a bit and created a race, a 100-mile race, out of what's called the Raw before the 24, and usually the Raw was held early January as a shakedown, more or less. And so really was a non-event, whereas this very much was an event because they were racing and racing hard. And it was really just to decide the pole, which it seems a lot of work to decide a pole, but they put it the week before the actual 24-hour race. So literally tonight they'll put the cars away and they'll be in Daytona for the rest of the week getting ready, which is kind of normal anyway, but I think it's a much smarter way of allocating time rather than creating a situation where you're in Daytona potentially for 3 weeks getting ready. And with COVID, I think very smart.
Well, there's a lot to discuss about that because some of the teams have talked about the pros and the cons of doing the Roar the week before instead of 2 weeks before. So, hey, but guys, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll continue the discussion about the Rolex 24 because we have our guest Brian Till going to join us. You're listening to Speed City. We're live in Austin, Texas. Back after a quick break.
Lap Battle USA is back at Circuit of the Americas March 6th and 7th. It's the ultimate time attack challenge, where top drivers compete for the fastest lap times in fully tuned track-built cars, featuring the Grid Life Touring Cup, Lone Star Trap Ride-Alongs, food trucks, a Just Vibes car show, and more. Plus, the Life Motorsports Nissan GTR is back to defend its time of 207-181. It's a whole weekend of family fun. Tickets are $10 online, $20 at the box office. Find out more at superlapbattleusa.com.
Hi, this is Mario Andretti, and this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
Guys, I don't think we were appropriately excited that first segment because racing has started again, guys. Jonathan was calling the Toyota Racing Series. We got the Roar going on. We got the Rolex 24 in a week. I think that we need to pump it up just a little bit, and I think probably can help us with that as our first guest. I'm really excited to have him. Big fan of this. Brian Till. Brian, welcome to Speed City.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm.
Were you muted?
I had you on mute. I had you on mute. I'm looking for my cayenne pepper in the pantry, and I just found it. So I was away from my phone, and you were muted.
See, I told you he was going to spice it up for us. He's got the cayenne.
Well, what do you
He is.
Brian?
I know.
He not only drives a Cayenne, he eats it too.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I'm in the middle of making a little spicy tomato sauce because it's late here. It's 8:15, so I'm East Coast time, and my kids run around and do all kinds of things. And one of my kids had a baseball meeting, and we eat dinner late anyway. So we're having a late dinner. I'm cooking a little spicy, smoky tomato sauce.
I love it.
As a good old Texas guy, I was hoping you were like fixing some enchiladas or something. But...
Well, no, we had tacos last night, but I mean,
okay, there you go.
Here's the deal. So it's got smoked tomatoes. It's got liquid smoke in it. It's got cayenne. It's got a little fiesta steak seasoning in it. So it's not, the Italians probably don't like me very much for what I do to spaghetti sauce, but it's more of a, Texas kind of spaghetti sauce.
You sound quite the culinary expert.
Yeah, Texas Italian. I've heard of it.
I love to cook, I do. And obviously, per my waistline, I love to eat. So,
hey, never.
I guess
trust
if you're going to do one,
chef.
you get the other one. So
that's right. Never trust any chef.
Brian, we were keen to get you on for lots of reasons. We've got both of us have got F4 and F3 coming up in the not too distant future. we know you're an aficionado, not only in cooking, but in a little bit of sports car racing. And, of course, that's coming up next weekend, and it was this weekend. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. And whatever you want to talk about. Racing in COVID, life in the fast lane, whatever.
So we're not on television, and I'm cooking while we're having this conversation. I can drink wine while we do this, right?
Absolutely.
You could. We wouldn't tell anyone.
We encourage it, actually.
Oh, well, that's exactly, yeah. All right. So no one needs to know, but that's what's happening. So there you go.
Well, wait a minute. Whose wine are you drinking?
We've had Pruitt on a few times, and he likes to drink his wine when he's on.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there you go.
Is this Jeff? Is this Butler?
Scott's got some good wine. I don't want to leave Kevin Buckler out of the wine conversation either, because his feelings would be hurt.
Yeah, we've had him on. He likes his wine.
Well, and you got AJ Foyt too. You got a selection there.
I've not had any of AJ's wine. I've had Andretti's, I've had Pruitt's, I've had Kevin's, but I have not had any Foyt wine.
I think Kevin's is my favorite bottle shape and design with those tachometers and shifters and all that stuff.
His Racer series or whatever it is.
Yeah. I've got a bottle of that at the house right now. Well, hey, Brian, I got to ask you, man.
Was this about food and wine, or was this about racing?
I know we got to shift gears and talk some racing, man. Well, how about the topic of the Rolex and the Roar, the schedule with COVID and everything? Have you talked to drivers and teams about the fact that it's now 1 week apart and how that's affecting teams?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I think when the schedule first came out, there were a lot of people who were against it, and they were like, no. And I think as time has gone on, and after we watched a really good race today, although I guess that's the other thing that was cool about the race today. The weather changed completely, just like it can over 24 hours in Daytona. But anyway, I think when you look at it, you look at the new point structure and all of that, the race made sense. And in reality, for some of these teams who haven't had a chance to race together before, coming to the Roar and just testing maybe isn't really what they need. This little dress rehearsal with kind of that short 100-minute race really has allowed some of these teams who've not been together under race conditions a little mini race test before then. I think that's actually kind of good. And then obviously, if you crash your car, well, then you're going to complain that there's not enough time to fix it before the 24th. Luckily, I don't think anybody did that in a big enough way that it's going to impact anything. But, when you look at it, you guys can remember there were years when it was like the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th of January. And let's face it, there were still some crew members and stuff that had headaches when they got down there for the Roar that early in the month. And then you had a lot of time to get things ready, maybe even go back to your shop, even if it was quite the haul. And then it got pushed a week later one year. And now all of a sudden there wasn't much time, maybe just a couple of weekends. And so when you really looked at the back and forth, you didn't have time to do anything. And this way, I think even in a non-COVID time, when you look at it, this way may not be a bad thing. From a travel standpoint, you've got 10 or 11 days worth of hotels instead of, 2 flights, a flight there and a flight back to wherever you were, and then another set of flights to get you back down for the race and stuff. So it may actually end up being a cost-effective way as well. And, even post-COVID, that same type of schedule may continue. And I actually like the idea of racing for the pole, although the complaining after the race about BOP and people not showing their hand and stuff, we have that every year that you go down there. But I would think that, and the officials think, it's why they came up with it. They think it's a better way to keep people from trying to not show their hand. But again, with all the data that they have these days, it's kind of difficult to hide stuff because the data that the technical staff looks at, they watch telemetry real time from some of the teams sitting on the pit box down the IMSA pit box down the pit lane. So they know what's going on and they can see, and they're smart, they can see where you can hide things and if you are hiding things. So I don't know. I mean,
Brian, that was something I wanted to ask you about because Pippo Durrani, who's a good friend of the show, and Felipe Nasser were both quite strong about the other guys not showing their hand, and they seemed a little bit miffed, a little bit pissed off that nobody was, and I get it, but I mean, how does it work? I mean, how will they decide a BOP now off what we've seen?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I'm not sure per the rules. I've got like 4 or 5 rule books in my head right now, so they get confused. I'm not sure that they can make a BOP change now before the race. I'd have to go back and review it and see how far out they can make one. So I don't know that it can be done. Now, in years past, to the point of when the roar was earlier, people most definitely, would try to hold back. And it got harder and harder to do as technology got better and better and the officials had more and more to look at. But with weeks, if you did it the first weekend in January and the race was the last weekend in January, the officials had plenty of time to make a BOP adjustment. It was well within the rules and it could be done, and it was done a lot. I just look at it now and I go, I'm not sure that, again, with the qualifying race, and remember, it wasn't just a race to determine the pole. The points involved.
Yeah.
It's basically 10% of a race win. So it was 35 for the pole, it's 350 for a race win now. And those points matter. They're going to matter all year long. These qualifying sessions that they do, the way they're going to do qualifying now, they're going to matter all year long. So saying that it's not important to go out and get those points, what was the points differential at the end of the year last year in DPI? It was not a lot.
Yeah.
Not a lot, yeah. Good point. Yeah.
So I really can't see anybody holding back. Also think back to 2 years ago when the Lamborghinis in GTD really held back at the Roar. And when they showed up for their 24 and it was discovered what they had done, they got hammered.
Yeah.
Hammered.
Yeah, that was a big deal, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just think the price to be paid for that isn't worth it, but I could well be wrong. Racers are racers, and you're always going to try to extract everything you can out of the car and out of the rules. I had somebody ask me last year in another series, we were talking about rules, and they said, so you want us to follow the black and white then, is what you're saying? And I said, what would Roger Penske do?
Yeah.
And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, do you really think that Roger Penske doesn't read in the gray between the line, or he doesn't hire people to do that? I said, yeah, I expect you to follow the rules, and I expect you to look for the gray areas. That's what racers do. That's what engineers do. You try to exploit every advantage that you can, but when you get caught, or when somebody says that's as far as you can go, your gray is now black, or your gray is now white, and you've gone too far in one direction or another, you have to stop. But yeah, you should always try to exploit. That's what you do.
That's racing.
I mean, and it's racing, and there's a line in every rule book. And again, I've been reading a bunch of them because the new ones are out. I think every rule book I've read, there is a line that says what is not explicitly permitted in this guide is not allowed. So it has to be expressly permitted, but your opinion and my opinion on what expressly permitted is may be different,
Yeah. Well, hey, Brian, I want to ask you about today's racing, because it's a cavalcade of stars, as they say out there. And I was watching. I want to see Kevin Magnussen, Jimmy Johnson, everybody, and Magnussen came out looking great right after the stop. And what'd you think of today? Anything jump out at you?
Yeah, it did actually. First of all, Kevin Magnussen is the real deal. Like, we didn't know that before, but I mean, he hadn't had much time in the car at all. And if you watch the broadcast from an NBC standpoint, you were listening to Dave Burns and Calvin Fish. I didn't listen to an IMSA radio broadcast, so I don't know what John Hindhaugh was having to say. But, Calvin was pointing out that Magnussen was supposed to be over here quite a while ago, several weeks ago, to do some testing and to do some time in the sim and get acquainted with the car. But he had some travel issues, and then his wife went into labor early and delivered their child early. So he didn't get here until just last week. And I think he got his seat fitted down in Sebring. And then, effectively, he's had very little time in the car. It didn't surprise me at all to see him do well in the conditions that he was in either. As someone who spent a lot of his career, I would imagine, driving in less than ideal weather conditions, he adapted to that very quickly. And I think to some extent, a DPI it's a rocket ship, and it is a very sophisticated car, sophisticated aerodynamics, powertrain, and all that other kind of stuff. But compared to a Formula One car and the speeds at which they operate, especially in braking, the DPI has to be, I would imagine, a little relaxed for him. Mm-hmm. It's like back in the 90s when I was in the early 90s when I was in IndyCar, and I watched a lot of the fast guys go by me a lot. Always, people would talk about. I've got this great picture of me and Mario from Loudon, New Hampshire. It was on the first test day that IndyCar ever ran there. It was a sanctioned test day by CART, and Mario's low and I'm high, and some sports reporter from the Loudon paper who knew nothing about IndyCar racing, obviously, took this picture, and I was on the front page of the sports section, and it said, Brian Till leads Mario Andretti through 3 and 4 at Loudon. And I was like, thank God you can't see speed differential in a still photo, because I'm sure Mario was like 15 miles an hour faster. I just happened to be in front during the picture. But anyway.
But you cut it out.
You permanently mounted somewhere.
Sure. It's on my freaking wall. Why wouldn't you do that anyway? But everybody would talk about the European drivers that came to IndyCar and how good they were on short ovals and how surprised everybody was. And I always said, why is that surprising to you? When you look at European racetracks that are fast and flowing, a lot of high-speed corners. And that's what a short oval is. It's high-speed corners. To me, it was not surprising at all. And it wasn't surprising at all how they adapted to an IndyCar on a road course, because the brake package that was on an IndyCar at the time was nowhere near what the brake package was on a Formula One car. So the braking zone was considerably longer in an IndyCar. You had time to think and plan, and you didn't go nearly as deep as you would have at the same speed into the same apex speed type corner as you would in a Formula One car. So it had to be a little more relaxing, and that's what Kevin has to be sensing, I would think, in the DPI. The brake zones are a little bit longer. You're not arriving at the same kind of top speed. Obviously, he doesn't have the same amount of aero to work with, but the car, and don't get me wrong here, I'm not saying it's easy to drive, because any car to drive at the limit, you still have to dance and play with the devil and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure it's just a slightly slower pace for him in that car.
Yeah, it's got to be like
in a Formula One car.
Like the rest of us, get going from riding on the track to riding on the street. He's just kind of got one hand on the windowsill, driving an LMP car after an F1 car. But hey, Brian,
he wasted no time in wanting to lead something.
Well, that's true. No, he wasn't used to leading. Hey, Brian,
oh my God, I'm close to the front.
Brian, I want to ask you about the F4, F3 series that you're involved in here in the United States. I mean, Jonathan too, but what's your role there?
I am a steward. Last year, I was chairman of the stewards, and all that meant was that I got to sit and talk to drivers. We always do it in a panel, but I would be the one that would lead the panel because I was the chairman of the steward. The other two stewards that I worked with the vast majority of the time, Wes Cunningham and John Walsh, are much better stewards than I and much better educated in the rules. Remember, I'm just a stupid ex-race car driver who became a broadcaster, who then became an official. So they were much more educated in that. And, and they're both race car drivers. They're both SCCA drivers who have raced at high level of national competition and all that. So they're good guys and they know what they're talking about. But as that steward panel, we would review incidents that Scott Goodyear, who's the race director, wanted us to review, and then talk to drivers. And the guys would write the the long, tedious FIA documents much more often than I would, but I tended to have the role of conversing with the drivers and their sponsors, parents most of the time, and team owners about what went right and what went wrong, and handing down decisions and explaining why we see it the way that we see it. And
you need both, though.
You
need those guys that read the books back and forth, but you need the driver's perspective too that you brought to it.
And every series has that. Every series has that. You look at IMSA and you look at the group that has been assembled there. I've known Bo Barfield since Bo was like 6 years old. When I first started racing in the SCCA in the Southwest Division, I grew up in Houston, and I raced a little bit with Bo's dad, Joe. And so I literally knew Bo from the time he was a little kid. Now he's like 6 inches taller than I am because I never continued to grow, and he did, but that's okay. I'm 5'8" on a good day if I sleep in boots hanging upside down, from one of those like back racks or whatever. But my 17-year-old is 6'1" and taller than I am, so I guess I'll be short forever. But you look at Bo and the guys that are around him in race control, and Paul Walter, who deals so much with the rules and regulations. And if you have a question, you call Paul and, you ask the question and you think it's a really good one. And then you can hear in his voice that you're obviously not very smart at all, but he's going to explain it to you anyway. It's kind of like when you were 10 and you asked your parents something and they would go, all right, here's why.
Yeah.
And Paul, and I love him. He's actually a great guy. But Paul's that guy that is the encyclopedia, and Bo is the guy that is just down to earth and normal, and you can have a conversation with, and he's, out there on his, what do they call that Ford with one wheel that he rides around these days? I don't know what it is, but, and so he's assembled a great team. And then you look at the driver representatives that work with him, Johnny Unser and Didier Tays, and I think EFR was in that role for a while. I don't know if he's doing it now, but between everybody that's in race control, it takes a team like that. It's just like it takes a team to put a car on the racetrack. It takes a team with different streaks.
Well, Brian,
to get things done.
We're up against it out of time, but tell everybody where they can hear you these days. I know that you're on social a little bit and Twitter and stuff, but tell us where we can hear you and all that.
Well, I'm not massively active on that. I am on Twitter and I'm on Facebook, which shows you that I'm old. But I'm worried about being canceled, so I don't really post a lot. We're in this culture, and I know that I'm bound to say something that'll get me in trouble. But yeah, obviously you can hear me next weekend on the Rolex 24 broadcast on the NBC ladder of networks that they've got going next weekend. So it'll be NBC and NBCSN and the app and all of that. And we've got a great team that's bringing that race to everybody. So,
awesome,
and I'm looking forward to it. There's always something that throws a wrench into the Rolex 24 as far as the race goes, whether it's weather or anything like that. And that's what makes it so exciting. So,
and that's what makes it hard to go to sleep. You're going, I know if I fall asleep now, then I'm going to miss something, and I don't want to. Well, Brian Till, thanks, buddy. We appreciate you coming on, and
I enjoyed it.
We appreciate your insights, and we'll get you back on, and I'd love it, and I love hearing you. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, bring dinner next time.
You guys have a great night. I'm going to enjoy my spaghetti.
Thanks, Brian. We appreciate it.
There you go.
All right,
Thanks,
we're going to go.
Appreciate it.
We're going to go straight to break, and we'll be back after these messages.
Hi, this is Jeff Gordon, and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to the show. We are going to shift gears and talk about some Austin motorsports. And we have the man as far as if you want to be a marshal. So, Les, why don't you introduce your longtime friend?
Absolutely. Well, for one, my foodie buddy, nicknamed King Benito, if Benito Chips Products, this is the guy. But Dave is the guy you got to know for getting involved in some of the officiating work around COTA during races. And I got asked it again a little while back. How do I get to be one of those quarter marshals? And I was like, I know the guy, and I've told the story so many times. Welcome, Dave. How do we do this?
Glad to be here. Well, it's not all that difficult. It looks difficult because there's not a door to open on the internet where it just says, here's everything. And hopefully we can kind of clear a little bit of that up. Most of the marshals that you see work in the races, especially the pro races, are SCCA marshals. And whether they're working NASA or they're working vintage, IMSA, Formula One, if it's in the U.S., it's most likely an SCCA marshal that's performing those duties. Here in Austin, we're really fortunate at COTA because you don't have to be even an SCCA member to join the ranks of the marshals on the track. If you reach out to us, we'll be able to put you in touch with the right people at COTA. And they're always looking for new folks, even if you have absolutely no motorsports experience whatsoever. If you bring a passion, they're going to welcome you with open arms for sure.
That's awesome. But, every one of those guys that I've ever talked to take it really seriously. It's not like it's just out there to have a free afternoon. They're serious about what they're doing.
Well, there's a lot of responsibility. The marshals, the corner marshals and the whole F&C Flag and Communications team's job, one, is safety. It is communicating with the drivers and communicating back with race control, making sure that when EVs are needed, they can get dispatched, et cetera. But it's keeping the drivers aware of what's going on ahead of them on the track so that we don't make a bad situation worse. And again, a lot of the events that we have at COTA, for example, when NASCAR came out and tested, or when IndyCar came out and tested, when they're actually racing, it's SCCA marshals that are working those. But during the tests, it's COTA employees that are working them. So, if you live in the Austin area and you want to be a marshal, you do yourself a big favor by being both an SCCA marshal and a COTA marshal. And the COTA stands, by the way, are probably the best in the country since they're among the newest and they are at the only Formula One track in the country.
Awesome. Well, and I know that, I've seen these guys out here for years, but tell everybody, what are the nuts and bolts? What exactly are they doing out there?
Well, it varies from event to event and sanctioning body to sanctioning body, but on a typical corner stand during Formula One, you may have 11 to 13 people actually working associated with a given corner. So at turn 19, for example, you'll have a chief communicator, you'll have a station captain, you'll have a yellow flag operator, a blue flag operator, you'll have an electronics board operator for the FIA. You'll have, you may have medical, you may have an intervention marshal that would actually get dispatched to go onto the track to assist with the safety teams. Or, on a COTA track day where people drive their own cars on the track, there may be only one or two people on the station. And their main function is to signal the drivers of the cars of what the track condition is ahead. That's the number one thing that they do. And they communicate that back with race control.
Dave, how hard has it been? I mean, we as the commentators for the big screens and the big events, obviously we've been out there when Formula One was supposed to be there, but tumbleweed doesn't really do much for me in terms of commentating. But how tough has it been for you guys? Because you're in the same boat. No major events at all last year.
We missed it. There's no question about it. Fortunately, this past year during F1 weekend, SCCA Pro took the date, and we had FR Americas, F4, SRF3, and we had a full weekend. It was a lot of fun. I wish we could have had fans out there. It's always a lot more fun to have spectators, but and with the announcement of MotoGP, now there's an open date on the calendar. Again, the upside is that very likely there's going to be a U.S. event that'll fill that weekend. And it's really just the big international events that are the big challenge because of the travel restrictions.
Yeah, and that's actually a good little segue there, because it looks like, is it now official that MotoGP is not coming early in their April slot, that it's going to be later in the year? Is that official yet?
Yeah, it's been postponed at best.
Yeah, dang.
And they're looking towards what? The end of the year again for both COTA and Argentina, yeah?
That's my understanding of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dave,
So is there any truth to the rumor that Dave Forman on his e-bike that's usually in the paddock is going to go out and take hot laps?
I moved to a stand-up scooter. So, I don't know if I'll get up turn one.
Scooters are fine as long as they're not on the public roads in downtown. I hate that. Hey, Dave, I got a funny but also serious question for you. I'm sure you remember the year. I don't even remember what event. I think it was Lone Star Le Mans when the school bus ended up on.
That was F4.
Literally. Oh, that was F4. Okay, literally on Circuit of the Americas, a school bus, a yellow school bus, and it was hilarious after the fact and crazy at the moment, but terribly unsafe, because I think there were actually still cars on track at the time, weren't there?
Yeah, I think there was, and it was a miscommunication, and that was actually it wasn't the bus driver's fault. She was dispatched to go out and pick up the corner workers. That's how these guys at the big events. That's how everybody gets to their stations, and somebody dispatched her too early. So.
Yeah.
The kids loved it, and they came back the next day, and then they went to the zoo, and then they came back a week later to see if there was anything else going on at COTA.
That's right. That's right. Well, hey, it's not the most uncommon sight. We've had the Wienermobile out on the track a few times as well.
I remember the MotoGP race. I was right there by Kevin Schwantz when the dog ran out.
Yeah. We've had dogs that we've had to flag for, raccoons, turtles, birds, deer. Interestingly, we've had rattlesnakes on pit lane here in a few events, but those have been remediated.
What about wild hogs? Because I know I-130 suffers from that now and again.
It's funny. I never heard any reports of that at COTA. I know they have it further south down in Caldwell County.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we haven't come face to face with a 800-pound behemoth.
There you go. Well, hey, folks, we've got a link set up. It's going to be out on the social media pages here shortly. If you want to join in, it's always a lot of fun. I've known Dave for a long time, and I recognize and know a lot of the corner marshals. Great fun. It is a serious job, but and gosh, some of the best views in the track.
Can't get closer to the action.
Yeah. Well, Dave Forman, we appreciate you coming on, and exciting to kind of get back, get to understand how that works and all that, because I haven't really thought about how all those people get organized. So we appreciate that work that you do.
Absolutely. We'll be out at COTA for the Lone Star Grand Prix, the Super Tour with SCCA in 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Cool.
We'll see you there for the big Porsche event at the end of February.
Yep, that too.
All right, Dave, thanks a lot. We appreciate you coming on.
Thanks Dave.
Guys.
All right, see you.
Bye-bye.
I love it. I love getting the local aspect of motorsports from Circuit of the Americas here on the show, too. All right, well, stick with us. We're going to go through a break. And when we come back, we've got some little more local stuff, because we're going to talk to the boys from the Super Lap Battle. Very awesome event coming to COTA here soon. You listen to Speed City, and we'll be back after a quick break.
My name is Christina Nilsson, and this is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're going to have the boys from the Super Lap Battle on here in just a minute. While we wait on them, we got a couple of stories that not a whole lot going on besides the Rolex and the Toyota Racing Series, but there was a couple of things that were announced that I want to talk about. Maya Wang has made history after being announced as the first ever female member of the Ferrari Driving Academy. I thought that was a really cool story. And then Simone Di Silvestre, another women in motorsports story, returns to the Indy 500 with a women-managed team. And then Iron Link's all-female Ferrari crew steps into WEC. How about that, guys? A bunch of women in motorsports making an impact here.
Yeah, Christina Nielsen, who just brought us back, she was racing today and will be racing next week. And yeah, woman power, female power is coming strong this year, and I think it is going to be the year of diversity in all the championships, and I'm delighted for it. Lewis is doing his thing at the very top of the sport for his causes, and I think that what Indy's doing with Simona, and we're also doing something in F3 and F4. Willie T. Ribbs involved in a diversity program with us. I'm excited. I'm excited about the year ahead on that particular issue.
Yeah,
well,
that's
there's a great
cool.
combination because you've got Catherine Legg, Christine, and Earl Bamber. Talk about a powerhouse combination right there. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, also, Ferrari's going to run the 2018 F1 car at, how do you pronounce it? Fiorano? I always mess that up.
Fiorano,
yeah, in Italy, one of those Ferrari tracks. And there's, 7 drivers going to get track time, including Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, but also Mick Schumacher is going to get some time on Thursday and Friday. And Kylam Eilot and Armstrong and Elise. So that's going to... That's pretty cool. I mean, Jonathan, does it surprise you at all that Mick's going to get some time?
No, it doesn't surprise me, and I think it's good, really good. But I do want to mention, you mentioned the Toyota Racing Series, and both Marcus Armstrong, who is a Kiwi, and Callum Eilot, who's a Brit, are both graduates of the Toyota Racing Series, and when they finally turn a wheel this week, they'll be the 19th and 20th drivers from graduates of the TRS that have driven Formula One cars. And of course, Lando and Lance Stroll and Daniel Kvyat do it on a regular basis. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing Mick and seeing how he does. And I'm looking forward to seeing Mazepin too. But
same track, same car. I mean, it's an older car. It doesn't matter. But instead of being compared to their championships, we're going to see them, depending on the conditions. But if they're pretty stable, we'll get to see a decent comparison between Mick, Mazepin, and the up-and-coming Academy drivers, as well as Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, absolutely. Very cool. And, I mean, look, that's also going to be one of the fun things to watch the Ferrari team with Carlos Sainz. I mean, don't you agree? That's going to be one of the he's a proven driver, but, in the pressure cooker that is Ferrari, and having him pitted up against Leclerc, that's going to be a great story, too.
I actually got a feeling that Carlos Sainz is going to hold his own. I mean, there's no question that Leclerc is very, very good, but I actually think Carlos Sainz is very, very good, and I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, because that McLaren was coming good, but I think he's coming good, too.
Yeah, no doubt. What else, Jonathan? Any other stories? Let me ask you this. We always want to know, you have the inside scoop at the Toyota Racing Series because you've seen, like you said, Lando Norris and lots of amazing drivers come through there. Who are we watching this year?
Well, there are a couple, and in fact, the pole position. So yesterday's Grand Prix was all Kiwi, as I mentioned, because it was an international. There was no international drivers at all, which is usually the norm. But what made that also very good was it meant that a lot of the great Kiwis like Chris Vanderdrift and Shane Van Gisbergen, V8 champion Andre Heimgartner, and several others, Greg Murphy, who was a 4-time Bathurst winner, coming back, taking on the youngsters, and it was actually a youngster called Caleb Natoa who took pole position for the Grand Prix, beating Shane and everybody else, which is pretty impressive. But the guy who kind of stood out, and he had 3 podiums of the weekend, was an 18-year-old called Matthew Payne. And interesting enough, guess who his engineer was? Liam Lawson, who, of course, won the championship a couple of years ago and has just moved up to F2 and DTM this year. And he was back in New Zealand, and he'd raced against him when they were both kids, effectively, in karting and Formula First. So he was engineering Matthew, and Matthew was superb, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot of him. He's been in Europe doing FIA karts for the last couple of years. He didn't change the world, but he certainly made a name for himself this weekend. And the other one to watch is Billy Fraser. He'll be coming here. Billy Fraser is another young Kiwi. And he will be doing F4 here in the States. He's going to be doing AF 2000, Formula 2000 on the road to Indy next season. And Ronan Murphy is the other young and up-and-coming driver. He's the son of Greg Murphy, and he did F4 last year.
Hey, what about that young guy I've heard of? He's young at heart, the Ken Smith. Isn't he one of those young and up-and-coming drivers?
Yes, an up-and-coming hopeful. 79-year-old Kenny Smith.
What?
Did the whole 28 laps yesterday, despite having a
in an
shoulder
F3
operation.
car. I mean, in a Formula car, right?
In a brand new Formula car, yeah. At 79, 28 laps, G-force, you name it.
I was watching. My son and I were out in the workshop working on his Porsche, and we were listening. And he goes, 79-year-old? Did I hear that right? I go, yeah. He goes, well, what GT car? I said, no, we're talking a Formula car with all the G-forces of a Formula car. I would pass out at 79. That's crazy.
And here's the thing. When he first started, so this was his 50th New Zealand Grand Prix. Think about that.
Oh, my
FIA
gosh.
Grand Prix. He even had a plaque given to him by John Todd for his services to motorsport over the weekend. But he started racing against Sterling Moss and Jim Clark in the Tasman Series back in the 50s. And he's still going.
Oh, my gosh. That is crazy. I mean, it's hard to believe that he could be even remotely competitive at that age. That's just crazy. But, well, hey, guys, we have a guest that has joined us, and I'm really excited to bring him in because this is a really cool event. He was here, now he's gone. It's a really cool event that's coming back to Circuit of the Americas. Apparently, there's a street car that runs a 207. If you know what a 207 is at COTA, I mean, that's like what, F4 level racing?
Oh, that's wicked fast. This is great.
Yeah.
Cuban, welcome back. We're coming back to Austin. This is one of my favorite events because anything goes and whatever's there goes fast. Cuban, get us caught up on this year and what's new and the pack coming.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks so much for having me. You pretty much nailed it there. 207 and a street car. Now, I will put asterisks there. That car is our unlimited class. It has the most allotment of modifications. But the funny thing about his 207 is he ran it on a hurt motor. And he's coming back this year with full power. But to bring you guys up to speed, we've had an amazing year through COVID. 2020 after COTA was really up in the air with U.S. Time Attack and the organizations running. And all the competitors that also run Global Time Attack that come to Super Lab Battle, they've taken this time to just blow their cars up. We had our final event of the year. I believe 7 records fell. We saw cars that have not come out and competed in a long time go fast. So we're really excited about what 2021 COTA brings. I'm sure you guys know Texas is allowing the first Cars and Coffee of the year at our COTA event. So that's already going to blow up. I'm
awesome.
Sure you guys are locals. I'm sure everyone's itching to go out and just have a good time.
Yeah, that's really awesome. But, well, why don't you tell everybody a little bit more about Super Lap Battle? Obviously, we have that unlimited class. It's probably a 2,000 horsepower GTR doing that. But what about
GTR?
Yeah, what about the lower classes and how that works?
Absolutely. So Super Lap Battle is bringing Time Attack here to the U.S. in a bigger fashion. Time Attack has been a fringe sport, been going on in the States ever since the bigger teams came overseas and ran Buttonwillow Raceway Park in the early 2000s. Jason Deanhart and his team have worked very hard to bring Time Attack to a more serious sport where people look at it and go, wow, this isn't just ragtag, put your car together. So even in our lowest classes, these cars fly. So let's go from the bottom. So we have enthusiast, street, limited, and unlimited. Those are the main competition classes. So that, 1,000 horsepower GTR, obviously an unlimited class car. Enthusiast would be your everyday track guy. So the guys that want to get into time attack and have a car that is best suited to be entry level, that's our enthusiast class. Street class is a misnomer. When the rules were written 10 years ago, it was street tire class. These are not by any means your street car per se, but they are cars that are based off of production vehicles, and they have a lot of rules to make them feel street-like. Full interior in front of the B-pillar, dash, everything has to be there. Radio if equipped, HVAC if equipped, catalytic converter has been removed. That's the only thing that is not required for a street class car. They have minimal aero, obviously, 5-inch splitter, wing can only go back 5 inches, can't go above the roof line. Limited class is a step up. Limited class is going to be sequentials are allowed. You can remove 90% of the interior, but you still need a dash and a few other components. These are much higher horsepower cars. There's a big aero box. I mean, you're allowed to have a splitter that goes out 10 inches and 14 inches wide of the car if you wanted to build to the extreme of the aero rules. What a lot of older guys or old school racers would call, spaceships. That's not a car.
You can go tailgating on that too after you're done.
You know what? And they do after the event. You cut up some meat over there in Austin. Get some barbecue over.
There you go.
And then the sequential has to be shifted with a paddle. I mean, with a rod. And then unlimited class is basically what it's called. Unlimited paddle shift sequential. Full aero, fully gutted, professional drivers. Nitrous is allowed. It's
wow.
Everything above and beyond when it comes to that. So we're really excited to bring it back, along with the drift and the car show that'll be there. But we try to focus our hardest on bringing time attack into a serious viewpoint from the outside looking in. And we're really blessed that SCCA saw that, and SCCA brought us in as a pro-sanctioned event. We're the only sanctioned time attack event in the United States with a pro backing that's also being backed by an organization such as SCCA.
That's good. That means you guys are obviously running it properly and making it safe and having all the accoutrement to make it safe. I think I've used that word twice in 2 weeks now. But all the equipment and all the safety gear and everything and all the right people to keep it safe, right?
100%. SCCA used to have to send their individuals to all of our races to confirm we were fulfilling their standards. Obviously, it's a risk for them if you look at it. Not from our standpoint. Jason and his team have been laying it down to the most professional nature from the beginning. But after a couple events, we realized that it went from a bunch of people to 2 people to 1 person to finally like, yeah, you guys got it. So let us know if you need anything, but we don't have to babysit you anymore. And we've been like that for some while. So SCCA has been very good. And it also brings it from both parties. There are some very fast cars that run SCCA. A Viper from SCCA ran last year in our unlimited class and podium. This is a time trial guy that had never thought about time attack. And to give you like a quick difference, time attack is building something to run 1 fast lap. Time trial cars can run entire sessions. Yes, they're fast by every means, but a time trial car has never looked like a spaceship. The alignment's not as aggressive to the point where it'll blow wheels up. They don't push the limit of their engines to 12. They are a reliability kind of car that goes fast. Time attack guys, doesn't matter if you set your lap on the first lap or last minute of the last session, that's your fastest lap. So these guys really wring everything out of these cars.
Well, this is really exciting. Now, we were out of time, but can people still sign up? Is the field set already? And we can everybody just come out and have some fun and watch?
So we always recommend to people who feel they have the experience to go to Super Lap Battle USA, do a pre-registration form. I know that the entries are coming in like hotcakes right now, so this would be the best time to do it. Tickets are still available on the website. If anyone has any questions about rules or where their car would fit, obviously we highly recommend reading the rules first, but shoot us an email, rules at superlapbattleusa.com, and just go over all that. But they can definitely come in, get with us, and then if they fit the requirements of running with us, there's a good chance that they can get in. Along with everything else going on in the event, it will be live streamed, the entire thing from beginning to end. Our support race, Grid Life Touring Cup, all of that will be on the internet.
This is so perfect.
Like it has been the past few years.
This is exactly what we wanted when COTA first came to Austin. Thank you so much. We are out of time. We appreciate it. Thanks to Brian Till, everybody calling in and listening and watching. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next Sunday night.